Okay, hi boys and girls. Today is a question and answer day. And luckily nobody gave me the opportunity to see or read these questions, so this is definitely exciting for me anyway. There are at least 30 Chinese car companies that would definitely be able to take a shot at not just Tesla, but Ford, Volkswagen, everybody. There's Toyota. There's no thinking that the good old days are going to stick around is ridiculous. I can tell you that in the 70s, in the early 70s, General Motors had about 50% market share. Now they got 14. Watch how that shrinks when the Chinese start showing up. People that talk about companies and whatnot that are really exciting to them, the number one is NIO. But Geely's already here. They own Volvo. BYD, BAIC, Shanghai Automotive. There's a ton of cars that are going to be coming in our direction. And I'm telling you what, there's going to be a ton to pick from, and they are really good. No bad gaps in panels. They've been taught by, oh yeah, me. I guarantee you that these guys are going to be coming in with products that are going to be equivalent to or maybe better than quite a number of European and American car companies. So there's a ton of them. Xpeng doesn't have to steal, and they don't have to imitate either. Xpeng, NIO, all these other guys that I mentioned, it used to be that BYD was borrow your design. Those days are gone. If you start thinking for a second, just for a second, that the Chinese are just a flash in the pan or they don't have anything truly to offer, remember, we have virtually no battery manufacturing here. None. We have virtually no ability to really compete on a proper level with any of our circuit boards and whatnot. Almost everything we need comes from China. They know how to make components, and they got tons of people that can put them together. If you're thinking that China is just a flash in the pan, you're out of your mind. I guess the greatest achievement is just starting Munro and Associates and staying alive for 33 years. But I'm sure that they are looking for something more specific. So I think that saving the F car, the Camaro Firebird, I think that was definitely a big deal. That car was dead when GM brought me on board. They were just looking for places to dig graves. And another one that I'm really proud of, and I wasn't the lead on it, but Munro was. Mike Oakes was the lead, but that would be the job that we did with Mini to make that. Well, the 787. I mean, that's another great achievement. We were one of the first. We were two of the first three people to work on Yellowstone. The original name of the 787 was Yellowstone. It was a code name. And then missiles and bombs. I mean, Paveway, the Bunker Buster, Javelin, Excalibur. I worked on so many. I can't. And then Club Car. We took them from 32% market share to 80%, and that was a 100% Munro job. So I don't know which one to pick. It's like asking which child you like the best. You can't pick. Sorry, that's the best I can do. Cybertruck. There's no. That's it. I'm looking forward to Cybertruck. Actually, more than Plaid. It depends on how long they can last against the Chinese. I've driven pretty much all the cars that have an ADAS system, which is basically AI, and I have seen nothing that comes anywhere close to what Tesla has. If the auto manufacturers are smart, the bigger OEMs right now, they will suck it up, swallow their pride, talk to Mr. Elon Musk and beg for his help with circuit boards and software for sure. A Tesla van. Tesla does not make vans. I would suggest that if Tesla wanted to make a van, then they should get into cahoots with Chrysler. The Chrysler minivan is absolutely, without a question of a doubt, the best minivan on the planet. I think that to make it electrified would take the Tesla Touch, and the combined van would be absolutely brilliant. It would have all the features and functions that anyone would ever want in a van, and it would be an EV. That's what I would do. But again, there's a lot of pride in the OEMs, and it's hard to say whether or not they'd want to go for that. But that would be the fastest, easiest, best way to make a minivan that the world would really be looking for. When someone says hours per vehicle, unless I've calculated them, and there are two ways to calculate it. One is value hours. Okay, so value hours are the hours that it would take to build the car if the parts magically appeared in the operator's hands, and so did the tools. That gets rid of things like walk time and searching and things like that. And that tells you value hours. That's one. Actual hours, sometimes those are called engineered hours, I should say. The other one is the real actual hours. Actual hours for 30 hours, that would be outrageously high. My guess is that is taking into account the manufacture of the battery pack or something along those lines. Things that are extraordinarily different, subsystems that would be made. 10 hours sounds about right for Tesla because Tesla's got a lot of modules and their lines are relatively short. They don't have a lot of variety in seat colors and things like that. So I don't think those 2 hours are projecting the same amount of effort. Europe will probably reach 50% at about, I'm going to say 2027. The United States, if they hurry, will be about 2030. The reason why is simple. Our marketing here in the U.S. is much stronger than it is in Europe. By marketing, I mean OEM marketing. OEM marketing can determine when it is you decided to buy your car and why. And right now it's basically turned off. And by the way, you have to remember that when the OEMs are trying to sell their products, those are turned into commercials. Commercials are put on TV, and commercials pay for TV in general. So if you want to affect the news, as a rule, what you do is you spend a lot of money on commercials, and then suddenly your name appears a lot more on TV with the message that you want to project as an OEM. So if General Motors wants to have everybody think that there's no way you can get to an EV in a short period of time, then what they'll do is they'll pump commercials that say effectively those things, and then the different TV channels will parrot them, and that's what holds the U.S. back. Most of the time, people believe what they see on TV. Well, I have been pretty successful. I haven't been involved in any recalls or any failures. Munro's been in business for 33 years. We have not had a single failure. And the reason for that is because we spend a lot of time in engineering, and I don't listen a lot to people who want to do things on the cheap. In fact, the philosophy here at Munro is don't save me any money, I can't afford it. And that's the truth. People who want to save money are always going broke. We will look at a product or a process, and we will determine whether or not we can see them going in a direction that we think is healthy. And if they do, or if they are, then we'll take that program on, and like I say, we'll be successful. But I've been around a lot of programs like the Pinto and a variety of other issues for different vehicles and different things. But I've never been involved directly in a recall or a disaster of any kind, regardless whether it's automotive or aircraft or medical. None of those things. Okay, so you have to look at things in a different way. There's cycles inside the auto industry. At the beginning, when you were first starting out in the car industry, those cars were made to last a century, and you can still find Model Ts running around. You can find cars from the turn of the century running around, still lots of them sitting there, still working, still with the original equipment, and they don't seem to be rusting out and whatnot. Then you got into the 30s, and the build quality turned into astronomically good. 1930s and into early 40s cars are spectacularly well built, well designed. Then you had the war years. Things changed a lot because the car was dropped. Then after the war, the quality of the cars went down significantly, and that would be because of the philosophy that was brought into all the car companies from the whiz kids type of mentality. The idea is to do nothing but make money and push cars out the door. You'll find that they degraded right up until they got to the 70s and early 80s, and the reason for that was because the Japanese showed them the way, and they came in with high quality vehicles at a good price because they knew that if they made a high quality product, they would make money and they wouldn't have huge amounts of warranty bills. In the other OEMs, North American OEMs, the warranty was actually looked at as an easy way to make profit by selling componentry. So the gas station or dealership or whatever would charge you their labor. They would charge you for the parts, but Ford, GM, BMW, whomever, they'd all make a ton of money on the bits and pieces. So it went up and up and up until the war years. Then there was a gap, and then they went down and down and down and down and down until you got to the invasion of Japanese cars, which were much, much better. And then everybody went up again in the 90s and into the 2000s, and now I think the car that you buy now is far superior to the ones that you would have bought 10 years ago. Far superior. The best way is by designing it properly right from the get-go. When we get any kind of a product, doesn't matter whether it's a car or a medical device, if we can get in early enough, then what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have taken into account every possible obstacle and every type of deviation or bad situation right from the beginning. We want to try and minimize the number of parts. We want to minimize the number of operations. We want to try and maximize whatever we can do to make sure that our customer can make the profound pieces. The pieces that are profound are the ones that are critical to the build quality of the product. Make sure that they keep those. Those are the things you want to stay vertically integrated on. We would want to make sure that we pick the very best suppliers, not the cheapest suppliers. And we'd want to have trained personnel to put the thing together. That's the only way that I know of. And when we do a vehicle at Munro, well, the average vehicle company will take anywhere, depending on where they decide to call a start, they will take anywhere from 36 months to 60 months to get that car on the road. We've done vehicles, well, one, the Viper that we were only a part of, that only took 12 months. That was because everybody was excited and we didn't have too many meetings. And Chrysler at that time was very, 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 it was loaded with top engineers. And that car was put together by the best engineers that Chrysler had, which at the time were damn good, and all the best engineering talent that was in the neighborhood. So that car went in 12 months. When Munro works on a car, we can make a car come out the door anywhere from 20 to 30 months, and that's faster than anybody can do them. I'm going to tell you right now that the kids who can possibly, I'm going to do the reverse. So if you have a child today and that child is somewhere around 6 or 8 or something like that, get them a little kit. I mean, Lego is fine to put little things together, but give him something where he can actually, him or her, something that they can actually try and put together. And if they don't seem to like that, maybe you can get them one of these little electronic toys and let them play with that. There's 2 streams for science, really. One is looking at mechanical things, and the other is to look at things that are electric and electronic. You got to find out which stream most interests the kid, and so that's kind of how you start. When that child starts to go to school and its teachers start telling him that, oh, well, you don't want to be in science because after all, you're going to get your hands dirty and on, and you don't want to make things. If your child isn't being taught things like how to use a lathe or a drill press or a table saw or what have you, get him out of that school. Take him or her out of that school and find someplace else. Because quite frankly, they're going to wind up as a greeter at Walmart. Children today that get out of high school, they have no trade and they have no talent. They are going to lose. So I was lucky. And the reason I did this in the reverse order is because I'm going to tell you now what I did when I was a kid. I grew up on a farm. I picked apples, peaches, walnuts. I worked in tobacco drying houses. I worked picking tomatoes. I did a lot of shitty jobs. And by the time I was 10, I was pretty sure I didn't want to do that. Because quite frankly, my back is still broken from that kind of a job. And I just thought that there's got to be something better. So I drove tractors and I drove combines. And that was fine, but I didn't get a chance to do that very often. And when I wasn't doing that, what was I doing? Fixing things. I was trying to fix this or that with baling wire, making something work that the farmer couldn't figure out how to make work. When I was 16, my dad said, enough of you sitting at home doing nothing, because he classified everything that I was working on with the farm as a ridiculous waste of money and time. 2 bits an hour was kind of like what they were paying on the farm. He took me to, I actually started my apprenticeship 2 years early. You had to be 18 to start your apprenticeship, which I think is just absolutely stupid and wrong. But anyway, I started at 16 and I worked in a factory. And working in that factory, I found my niche. It didn't take me long to figure out that I wanted to be a tool maker. So 16, 17, 18, 19. I needed 4 years to get my journeyman's ticket, and that's how I got it. Working basically and going to school and cheating by getting in 2 years early. Once I got my ticket, I was also out of high school, and once I got out of high school, everybody says, oh, you should go to college. I really didn't want to go to college. I knew how to draft, but I really didn't want that type of a job. I liked the instant gratification of seeing what was going on. And besides that, colleges would not accept my high school degree or whatever diploma. And the reason for that was because I went to a technical high school. Now, the fun part about this is I had a hard time getting into college because I went to a technical high school. But in the town that I lived in, the city that I lived at, most of the millionaires that lived in that town came from that same school, W.D. Lowe in Windsor. They made more millionaires than all the rest of the schools put together. And yet, we couldn't go to dances because, oh no, they're tech boys. We don't want them tech boys at our school. Anyway, I did go to school. They shut it down. It was called White, Western Ontario Institute of Technology. Shut that down in favor of a college that would be more glamorous. Everybody could go to it. I mean, it was not just technology. It was doing everything. Okay, fine. So they got out of the technology business, and I went there for 2 years. There was a little altercation between myself and a professor. I found it best to get out of the school before the professor became conscious again, and I went to work as basically a designer, designing machine tools. So that's how I got that was the early years. Later on, when I was 27, I was chief engineer at Valiant, and I went to Ford Motor Company when I was 30. I left Ford when I was 40, and I've been doing Munro and Associates since then. So that's the whole story of my life. So there you go. Shouldn't there be like applause or? There you go. Okay, now we're done.
Yep,
all right.
So just give us a wrap up.
Okay. Well, thanks again for listening in, boys and girls. I hope these answers or these questions were ones that you wanted. Keep the questions coming along, and if you send them right to Eric, he'll make sure that next time, I will be answering your question. So thanks again. Have a great day. Bye now.